All right, we're back and ready to start doing some color grading on the shots that we've picked here. So let's come into develop and start this process. I'm gonna give myself a little bit more room here. Mild. Okay, so let's come in. Let's try to do a white balance first on some sort of neutral gray here. That'll warm it up quite a bit. And then I'm going to try to recover some of that blown out sky a little bit. We can replace that if we need to. So I'm not too concerned with that. That's something that thankfully Photoshop and Luminar and tools like that are really great at getting rid of, and crank the saturation, getting rid or replacing the sky. So usually I'm not too worried about that in shots because it makes it pretty easy to do. But if we can bring back some of the natural one, then do that. Just the curve, add a little bit of contrast to it. And I always test this to see how it looks. So the lens correction, you can see that brightens it up quite a bit. See if I like it. You know what? I actually do. I do like that. But that's going to mean I'm going to want to adjust this a little bit. Go. Okay, so with that, we can hit Command-Shift-C in order to copy these settings. Go ahead and copy that. And then for any of these in this same, basically that same location, select those and then Command-Shift-V in order to paste those. And it should. Okay, well, I guess it didn't do all of them. So again, for these, a lot of these, the sky is super blown out. There's not a lot of recovery that we can do on that. So we might want to replace the sky in some of these, just to not have that absolute nothingness. But you do have the sun right here, so which is why you're getting that little bit of haze. So, and then this one obviously is even more so we can play off that. Actually, see, your hand is kind of there. So I'm going to, as blurry, I'm going to go ahead and remove the flag on that one. As I mentioned before, it's an ongoing process. So just because you picked something to begin with doesn't mean you have to keep it. Bring this down a lot. Yeah, let's still keep that on. Okay. So these, obviously the sky is super blown out, but I'm not too concerned about that at this point because, like I said, we can replace that if we need to. Or we could, leave it as it was shot in camera too. And that's okay, because some of them, not all of them, obviously are blown out like that. So okay, so moving on to kind of the next set here. I'm just going to Command-Shift-V in order to paste. Let's do another white balance. Usually neutral gray is what you want when you're white balancing. And fortunately, a lot of parking garages have a lot of neutral gray. One of the reasons for that is because the way that light is absorbed by that. You notice if you have gray in a shot and it's a really warm light, really warm, sunlight, things like that is going to typically be warmer. The gray is, on the warmer side, as opposed to if you're using a cooler light source, it's going to be cooler. The gray absorbs that differently. And so it's more visible, it's more noticeable in gray shots, in the shots. So neutral white balance, but that is a good place to go. I'll try to bring some of this highlight on her. Okay, so with that, Command-Shift-C, copy, Command-Shift-V to paste. Bring the shadow up, since she's got a big shadow on her face. Obviously, it's going to need to be straightened and such. Is that, yeah, it's the same here. So Command-Shift-C, Command-Shift-V. Actually, I'm going to adjust the tint to be in the center there. It's a little too purple for me. So let me do that instead. Oops. Shift-V. Yeah, that's just for these shots. I like this. That's better, but just for those, let's actually try doing a new white balance here. See, that's super on the purple side. We might actually bring some of those blues out just a little bit. Not too much. You can see what it's doing, but just a little bit. There we go. I like that better. One thing I'm using is the sky, kind of looking at that to see the natural blue of the sky there. That's probably, okay, a completely different location there. So we don't really have anything to white balance here. So let's look at one of these and copy just the white balance and then paste that. So we have that to start with. And then start to adjust slightly. A little bit of contrast. The white and the black separate, kind of essentially the same as contrast there. It's just individual attributes. Oops, this is the blue. I want all of them. It's like it's changing the color. It shouldn't change the color. I'm just looking at brightness, basically. Oops. I mean to add an extra point. And then I think I was still using 85 for that. At one point I switched to my 2475, which is actually what I have on the camera right now. That one. So that lens correction will be different, obviously. And I'm going to bring the shadows back down. I kind of like it down a little bit, adding some of that contrast on her. Let me check all now, copy, paste. Yeah. So again, no composition or straightening yet. I'm just focusing on some of the color grading here. This, let's see what it figures out. There we go. That's better. I do like that a little bit better. It's just so much blue that we don't need to add any blue to it. It's already got blue in the shot. No, don't need texture or anything. There we go. All right, so let's copy that and we'll use that. And let's, actually, while we're at it, that's a little much. That's a little much on that. I'll do that a lot of times, go through and, after I've done a new color grading, go back to an old shot and be like, hey, how does it look on that? And, you can always go back and undo it. That is very orange. So let's see. I'm going to have to bring the shadows up a lot. And then the highlights, which is what's in the background, down. If we start to do that too much, it can start to introduce some haloing, which is what we want to avoid, which is one of the reasons why these shots are so challenging to get both. It looks like we even have a little bit of noise in there, but we'll deal with that later if we need to, rather than right now, because I'm not sure what the crop on this is going to be either. So let's copy this. Okay, being back outside. And basically this location, let's copy and paste. But I'm going to bring it down, bring down the shadows a lot. Something like that. Copy, paste. I can bring the shadow up a lot on her face. Let's see. I'm going to bring the blacks up there, but use our curve to brighten some. I like that better. Copy, paste. Yeah, so you can actually see her face a little better. That's a little much. Copy, paste. This is good. Bring the highlight down a little bit. You can see it's blown out right around its arm. Exposure is one of those things that a little bit goes a long way. You don't usually need to crank it, Just a little touch in most cases. Of course, there's always exceptions, but, general rule of thumb. Copy, paste. Have a couple more like that. So let's copy, paste. She's in the shade, so the shadows. That's pretty obvious. You can see the line here. But I want to just brighten just a little bit to let her be seen a little bit better. And bring this down. This is what we're pumping some of that brightness with. Curve. Bring some of that detail there. Okay, copy, paste. Bring the shadows up just a little bit. Copy, paste. Bring, in this case, I'm going to bring it down. You can see her hair is getting blown out there. I'm gonna bring some of that back. Some of that detail there. Bring that back. Let's copy that. Paste. Paste. This one, let's try it. Let's try one of our blue, even though that's not the sky. No, that's too yellowish, too yellow. I like keeping the, see what Lightroom, yeah, I see Lightroom tries to figure that out too, and it's too yellow for my taste. Let's use, there we go, use that as a white balance, that little bit of a neutral gray there. Okay, copy this, paste. This one is a different, shooting at a different angle. So we might, let's actually shift to, I'm going to use the mixer actually and adjust the blue, get it to be a little bit darker, similar to the other shots that we had. Kind of matching this sky. See how it's different. So kind of matching that a little bit better. Bring the luminance down. So let's copy that. Paste. It's better. A little more of the blue sky that you would expect. Obviously, that's going to need to be straightened. Okay, so these are the darker ones. I'm not going to use the blue sky sort of color grading. Let's find a little neutral gray, basically concrete that's there. To do that, I'm going to keep these. I think I like the idea of keeping these darker. I was talking about that when I was culling the images. I like that idea. Since it is a dark, wait, I want to make sure I don't have my blue luminance. Yeah, it is a dark staircase, so we're going to leave it as a dark staircase. Obviously, some of those have better light there, but okay, so this is more stylized silhouetting. So we are going to, I don't want to add a point, I want to adjust this point. So we're almost kind of playing that. And let's adjust the, Just a slight little push on the highlights one way, the shadows another, in order to emphasize that silhouette a little bit more. Yeah, so for these, I was talking about this before. So for these, I was using the 28-75 lens. A tighter space, 85 would not work in a tight space like that. This copy, yeah, better. This, I'm actually going to darken it a little bit more. In order to, it's not going to be the same silhouette as the other, but, you know, similar type concept. Okay, so not that. Let's pull another. We had some of these under the parking garage. Let's try that and see where we're at here. It's a good starting point, at least. Let's do a little bit more of a white balance using the concrete background. That's something that when I am shooting, let's see if we can see if it recognizes the blue. Bring that back just a little bit. When I am shooting, if I recognize the shot, you know, in the composition, that's something that I keep in mind. Is, you know, if I recognize that there's some, that's a little much. If I recognize that there's something that I can use for white balancing in the shot, then I try to include that, and then you can always crop it out if you need to. So, you know, obviously this is right behind her, so that's that. But that's just something to keep in mind when you're shooting. Try to, I don't want to get that harsh. You can see I was creating this kind of harsh effect around the hair. I just want to bring a little bit of that texture back in. One of the reasons for that is because doing a sky replacement on that, as I mentioned, it's great, but it's not great for textures like that. So if I were to do a sky replacement, it would just replace that whole thing, and we wouldn't have that mesh texture that actually was there. A little bit of kind of a mesh. It's not open there, it's a little bit of a mesh. So I was just trying to keep some of that. We'll start this one. Actually, we've got this. I kind of like the glow though. So one of the reasons for this, we had, as I mentioned before, for some of these shots, I was using either a diffuser or a bounce card. And the bounce had, we had gold on that. This one I think is just diffused, so it's just sunlight going through the diffuser. So we don't need to do a lot, actually. Just a little bit of brightening. This one, a little bit more. Match that a little bit. We can do a side by side. Let's see, let's use this one. So now we can kind of see. to match that, the brightness and exposure, which was changing with the as the sun's changing, but I'm trying to get it to be a little more consistent there. What are we doing here? 5274, just a slight. No, I like that little bit of a gold tint to it. Let's copy that. This, obviously, I'm going to crop out where it's all blown out there. So I'm not concerned with her body being all blown out, because we're not going to use that part of the image anyway. A little slight difference. Okay, this one's different and different area. Let's see what. So it automatically detects that. I still like, for these, I still like a little bit of the golden glow to it. So I think we're going to keep that. Let's shift though. We'll use that one instead. As a reference for our exposure adjustments. This one might need a little bit more. Shadow bump. It's a little too much. Here we go. Okay. And then let's copy that, and we'll paste these. Okay, this one, time change, outfit change, the same location obviously, but it's a little bright. And then just to double check, let's do a enforce it a little bit more. All right, so we copy that, use that as a reference. We could bring it down just a little bit, actually. Yeah, just a slight. This here might need to bump it up quite a bit. Again, not worried about her legs here. That's just too blown out. Not going to keep that. And as I was shooting these, that was definitely something that I knew that I'm not going to get all of her. They're not intended to be full body shots. But I also wanted to get more in the shot so that I can crop it afterward. I never like to do try to get the perfect composition in camera. That's something that I lend I let let's adjust this just a tad, cool it off just a little bit. This again, it's concrete, but I had a gold bounce card there, bouncing that light up and making it warmer. So I don't want to get rid of that because that was something that we liked in camera. Talking about composition, yeah. So I never try to get the composition perfect in camera. So that's definitely something that I try to allow myself some extra space to get that composition in post. Actually, those got that contrast there. Let's bring some of that back, actually. Let's see if we were to bring some of this back. Yeah, so we still get that. I like the halo there, but we're bringing some of that detail in the back. Yeah, a little bit better. Okay. And here, copy our settings to the next for consistency. Let's okay, so let's adjust slightly. Oops. Brighten just a little bit on those. And I think that's the last one. Okay, great. So we've got the first kind of rough color grading here. Our next step is to start to edit these in Photoshop. So I'm going to launch this, and it might take a little bit to open these 142. Actually, let's not do all 142 at the same time, because that might cause some issues. So we'll just do maybe, let's go 10 at a time. Now we could do a little bit more. Let's try 20. We'll try 20 at a time and open these up. And then we'll end this video here, and I'll come back in the next video where we have these open in Photoshop, and we'll start going through the next step of editing. See you there.